We still don't know what's going to happen with AB 15, if that's going to take in effect. We won't know anything for another 9 days of how that's going to go. As far as AB 3088 goes, and the expiration of that being the end of this month. So hopefully we get some answers quickly, but I'm going to guess that they have another 9 days to figure it out. I do know what the holdup is on AB 15, and the reason why it hasn't passed yet is there's absolutely no protections at all whatsoever in it for landlords. So until they add some kind of a protection for landlords, it won't pass. And that's what they're debating on. So God only knows what protections they're going to throw in there for that. But we'll see. We'll see how that one plays out. I'm not happy with Assembly Bill 15. We got a new president today. We'll see how it plays out. I'm sure he'll slap a no eviction moratorium on the whole nation here very quickly, because he's been very pandemic concerned throughout his whole candidacy, but we'll see what he does now that he's in the seat, so to speak. LA County, hold on, I'm letting people in, you guys. LA County, the entire county has a no eviction moratorium until the end of February. In the LA County no eviction moratorium, they have added a notice to allow entry is no longer being a reason for eviction. So basically in LA County, they've taken away our right to enter. If the tenant won't let you in, fails to enter, in LA County, we can't do anything about it until the moratorium expires. Things that are on the docket that we should be looking at would be Assembly Bill 15. Assembly Bill 15 is what they have produced, or one of the items they have produced to take over when AB 3088 expires. It is more restrictive than AB 3088. It goes in to allow for retaliation and what would be considered retaliatory, and how we can't touch them for 6 months and yada, yada, yada. So that one's a big mess. And it makes me mad because we won't even go there. The reason that Assembly Bill 15 has not passed is there are not any protections in it at all whatsoever for a landlord. So until they implement some kind of protections for a landlord, AB 15 will not pass. Could they pass something else instead? Absolutely. Anything could happen. We've learned that most definitely through this pandemic thus far, is that the rules change every time the winds blow. So I anticipate us seeing a big change as far as the COVID rent rules and so on and so forth within the next 9 days. They need to make a change, an amendment, implement a new law altogether on or before the 29th of this month. So we have 9 days before that takes place. And the reason that AB 15 has not passed is there is absolutely, without a doubt, the way it sits right now, there's not one protection in there for a landlord at all. So until they add one, that won't pass. And God knows what they'll add in there, who knows? But you might want to start looking at AB 15. It's more complex and more detailed than AB 3088. And it is much more restrictive on the rents and when the rents are due. Okay. Joining us, because I had a bunch of people just hop on in LA County. Their moratorium ends at the end of February, last day of the month. And they have currently removed notice to enter or failure to allow entry when we serve a notice to enter is no longer a reason for eviction in LA County under this moratorium. So as simply as I could explain what I'm trying to tell you in English, is they are closing the loopholes and the doors in LA County on ways that we can do evictions now. Okay. It was in other counties, we're building cases on cause, nuisances, things like that, hoarding, whatever the issue is, modifications to the property without written consent of the landlord, and we're able to gain entry and do an eviction. In LA County, they've taken that provision away from us. So failure to allow entry is currently not a cause for eviction in the LA County moratorium. Yeah, not fun. So we anticipate on seeing some changes here happen with our own legislation, things that affect us directly in the next 9 days. They are most likely not going to extend AB 3088. They are going to write a new assembly bill altogether. Assembly Bill 15 is currently sitting there waiting. You may want to peek at it. It's more extensive and more complex than AB 388 as it goes into the way that it's written currently, and not to freak anybody out. So don't panic, because this is not the law yet, okay? And there's no protections in it for landlords, so it may not become the law. But how it's written right now is the 25% of the rent would not be due until December 31st of this year. And the 75% of the rent would become consumer debt that we could actually go after in the next 5 years. So it doesn't benefit us as landlords in any way, shape, or form. It also doesn't denote what would happen with the upcoming rents, like February, next month. Kind of need to know what's happening with that rent. So until they put more of the moving pieces all together and come up with an actual plan of action that makes sense, we're going to be in limbo. I saw a question come through. Let me see what it is. AB 3088 is the Tenant COVID Protection Act, and that expires on January 31st. So in the end of this month, 11 days. Today's the 20th, right? Yeah, it expires on the 31st. So we'll see what happens. I know we have questions because I've had a lot of questions in the last couple of days, and I'm doing my best to try to answer them. But again, I don't even know when next month's rent's going to be due. If you think that this bill's going to expire and that's the end of it, we're done, we can go back to normal, you're sadly mistaken. And the reason that I say that is look how full our hospitals are. Look at what's happening to us right here in California right now. Look at LA County right now, okay? So lots of moving pieces, but no end in sight to the COVID pandemic. So why would we have an end to all these rules about COVID? So far-fetched, doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So we want to make sure that we're thinking ahead and thinking outside the building, not just outside of the box right now with so much uncertainty. I saw something else. My demur was denied by the judge. Should I file a cause to enter the home and check it out? John, what county are you in? And I'd have to go look at your case and talk to the attorney that's handling your matter. You're in Orange County. Orange County doesn't have any restrictions currently as to failure to allow entry. It is only LA County that says that failure to allow entry is no longer a cause for an eviction under this moratorium, which basically made it impossible for us to build a case on the drama instead of chasing the money. For those of us that have been in LA County for some time with rent control, and when that came in, there were lots of little loopholes and moving pieces where you could kind of maneuver around the rent control. And as the courts became more savvy and legislation became more savvy of how we were going in the back door to get those evictions in rent control, they started closing those doors. Okay, that's what we're seeing happening right now is everybody stopped chasing money, started chasing the drama, even in LA County. And LA County said, failure to allow entry is no longer a cause for eviction under this moratorium. So they shut the door. It sucks, but it is what it is. Correct. In LA County, you can post notice to enter. If the tenant lets you in, great, the tenant let you in. If the tenant doesn't let you in, says they're afraid of getting COVID, they have COVID, all they got to do is use the C word. There's nothing you can do. You cannot give them a 3-day curable breach of covenant, a new 24-hour, a quit notice, and start eviction. You can't start eviction based on failure to allow entry in LA County. They've added that as no longer being a cause for eviction in LA County under the moratorium. When the moratorium is lifted, that goes away. But for right now, we can't do it. So Biden will want to extend the eviction moratorium. Thoughts? You want my thoughts? I don't think you do. I'll say this, Biden seems to have always feared COVID. And I'm going to be extremely honest with you guys. I don't fear it. If I get sick, I get sick. They've told us since this started back in December, a lot of people are going to get sick, a small amount are going to die. So far, that hasn't changed. A lot of people have been getting sick, a small amount have died. Do I know people that have died from COVID? Absolutely. I sure do. Do I know people that have gotten sick with COVID and survived? Absolutely. Sure do. My best friend's one of them. Her husband and her got it worse. No, she got it worse than her husband and her child and her 74-year-old mother. They were all over. They had a cold. Okay. It was like cold, only they felt drained. No energy, no sense of taste, no sense of smell, yada, yada. You know the symptoms, high fever. That lasted for a 16-year-old, a 74-year-old, and I don't know how old her husband is. I want to say he's maybe 32 to 35. And they were all sick for anywhere between 7 and 10 days. That's how long they were sick for. Ill, not feeling well. She had it for 6 weeks. Never had to go to the hospital. None of that. She's fine. Everything's back to normal now. So again, a lot of people are going to get sick. It's going to affect different people different ways. A small amount of people are going to pass away from this. I think Biden's scared of it. He's scared of getting it. It just doesn't make sense to me. My biggest fear is giving it to somebody else. Like I'm okay if I get it, I'll deal with it. But I don't want to give it to somebody else that has a compromised immune system or somebody that may not recover the way other people recover. My biggest fear is to give it to somebody else. That's not my intention at all whatsoever. We'll see what Biden does. He's the kind of guy that likes to give everything away. And we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, kind of scary. I'm trying to stay out of my political views. I wish we had a button for none of the above because everybody has lost their minds, okay? Just my opinion. I hope he gives landlords money. So do I. So do I. I hope he does something to help protect landlords. It's getting to the point where I'm scared for some of our owners out there. For those of you that don't have this kind of problem or maybe aren't seeing this, and let me put this in perspective for you. For those of us that own multifamily communities, we see less of the brunt of what's happening because you can have 10% of your occupants not pay the rent and still function. You could have 20% of your occupants not pay the rent and still function. When you're dealing with single family residents, it's an eye for an eye. If you're vacant or they're not paying, you're bleeding money. It's that simple, okay? And we've had owners that have been bleeding money since March, and they were protected for a period of time, but those protections have ended. They ended on October the 5th when the courts opened. But some of us still can't evict. Nobody's paying our mortgage. So we're now seeing those owners at notices of default. 4 more months and they're going to be at a notice of trustee sale. I mean, let's call it what it is. That's only 4 months away. That's scary. Some of them are 3 months to notice a trustee sale. So if we don't all pull together and figure out, and I don't mean we as in us, you guys, but the powers that be, come up with a plan of action, this could be what triggers the real estate market to crash. I mean, I don't know. I have a crystal ball, but it's broken. And all I can do is look at what's happened in other countries and how it's affected them. Look at Italy. They've been on lockdown twice. They've lost their entire senior community. How sad. They lost an entire generation because of this. Wow. Look at China. They've been locked down 3 times and they're now suffering from the worst economy since the 1970s. Ouch. I mean, I'd love to sit here and tell you guys what I think is going to happen, but quite frankly, I just don't know. We have some uncertainty again. I have no doubt that our new president will try to protect everybody from COVID because he's always had that mindset of COVID, but I don't know what he's going to do to protect us as landlords from losing our investment properties. It's scary. It's starting to get scary. And like I said, where we're seeing that being affected the most at this point is not in the multifamily communities, but more in the single family residences where you're more like an eye for an eye. You know, if your unit's vacant, you're doing everything you can to get it rented and flipped as quickly as possible because nobody's helping you make that mortgage. When you're dealing with a multifamily community and you have multiple units, it's much easier to keep breathing. But I'll tell you guys, we're paddling like ducks. We appear to be calm on the surface, but underneath that water, our little feet are just going as fast as they can because we're scrambling. It's starting to get scary for us independent owners. Anybody have questions? And I know somebody's got to have a question out there. I had an interesting question this morning about a tenant that vacated a unit in Los Angeles. Tenant vacated and landlord deducted the past due rent amounts in their itemized disposition of security deposit. The tenant did. They called him and said, I don't agree with this because I paid the 25%. You still owe the full amount of the rent. The landlord didn't kick you out. You left. And now you don't have a tenancy. So they're not obligated to continue to only accept the 25%. You're no longer their tenant. So if you're doing dispositions of security deposit, please, I beg you, make sure you're putting all the rent that's owed to you on there, not just the 25%, okay? They're no longer your tenant. They owe all that money, okay? So put the whole amount on those dispositions. Don't sell yourself short, okay? I'm trying to think, does anybody have any questions about anything going forward? Other than what I think the new president's going to do, because I have no idea. And we'll keep my comments to myself.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Patty? I can.
Okay. All right. So the landlords, you say they have a hard time to pay the mortgage. Do you see any negotiations going on with the lender for forbearance or some type of postponement? What do you see out there for that?
Oh, no problem. So let me explain to you how the forbearance works, and you can call your lender and ask for a forbearance at any time, and they'll start the process. What a forbearance does, just so everybody's on the same page, okay, is let's say you have a 30-year mortgage and you're 5 years into it, okay, and you've been paying, and now you need to do the forbearance because of COVID. What happens is they take the 25 years of payments and they take 1 year of that or 6 months, however much time you need. So, and they add that onto the back into your loan. So let's say right now they say, we'll defer your payments for 12 months. That means your 30-year loan just became a 31-year loan. So the bank gets to collect interest for all that extra time on the money, but you don't owe payments for the next 12 months. Now what we're starting to see people doing is they're like, wait, I don't want the forbearance because AB 3088 clearly states if you have a forbearance, you cannot evict your tenant until your forbearance expires. Okay, so what we're seeing now is we're seeing some landlords go, I don't want the forbearance. Instead, I'm going to refi, pull out equity so I have some money to mess with and handle it that way. In order to qualify for the refinance, you have to pay off the forbearance. Okay, you can't be behind on a forbearance. You have to clear that up before you can refi. I am starting to see some programs within the county, within the federal government, some rent relief coming in. Landlords, please, I beg you, pay attention to what you're signing and agreeing to, okay? They may give you a payment, and I'm going to throw out a number of $2,000 for the time being, but it comes with conditions, and you need to read the fine print because every program is different. So please understand what you're signing. They may be giving you $2,000 and you may be signing stating that you cannot evict that tenant for 12 months. So please be aware of what you're signing. Don't just see that $2,000. Look at the big picture, okay? Because if they're gonna tie your hands for 24 months for $2,000, they're crazy. Okay, just saying. So watch it with forbearances and watch it with that the programs that are coming out. I was told tenant now has 15 to file contest my eviction. My eviction was filed 90 days ago. The 15 days is up February 8th. Do I just wait until the state? Okay, so let me explain to you. A law passed, and I could go look it up if you want me to, basically saying that we can no longer count weekends and holidays in the expiration of a notice to pay rent or quit. So what they're saying is that 15-day notice to pay rent or quit can't count weekends or holidays, only court business days, okay? It also applies in the summons and complaint, not just on the notice. So where we used to have to wait 10 days to see if the tenant filed an answer or not, or 15 days, depending on how they were served, subservice, personal service, it all matters. Now those 15 days can't count weekends or holidays either, or court holidays. So it applies in two places. It applies on the actual expiration of the notice, and it applies on the time period that the tenant has to file an answer during the summons and complaint of an eviction trial. So as simply as I can explain it, evictions are going to take longer. It takes longer for the notice to expire. It takes longer for the court days that they have to file an answer. Did that answer your question and make sense to you? And yes, if you have to wait until February 8th, just sit down and wait. There's nothing you can do. If we find out that they file an answer, we notify you here at Fast Evict as soon as we find out that the tenant's filed an answer, and we usually check with the court every 2 to 3 days to see what's going on and keep an eye on your case. I hope that answered your question. But yes, right now I call it the just us system, not the justice system, because everything with the justice system seems to be hurry up and wait. Oh, it's more like just us. And that's just me venting my frustrations with all of you, because we're all in the same storm. We're not on the same boat, because some of us are in canoes, some of us are on life rafts, some of us are already drowning. We're not all on the same boat, but we're all in the same storm. Hey, I'm trying, Nicholas. We're all in the same storm. We're not on the same boat, though. That's for sure. Some of us are in a life raft. Some of us are in a kayak. Some of us are on a cruise ship. Okay. But we're all feeling the effects of it at the end of the day. If you need to get somebody out of your property and you need to do it quickly, I strongly suggest considering cash for keys. Before you shoot me for saying that, please hear me. If they make it so the rent's not due for another year, how long can you hold on before you're looking at foreclosure? Okay. It may make more sense in the long run and in the big picture to pay them money right now to get them out and get somebody new in there. Could the new person stop paying the rent? Absolutely. That's a risk. It's a risk of the business we're in. So again, I don't have any definite answers, just trying to get you guys to think outside of the building, outside of the box, things like that. Let me see what other questions we have, because I thought I saw something else come through. No, I'm good. Anybody have anything that they want to ask? Anything they want to talk about? If I could give you guys some homework for the weekend and something to entertain yourselves, go read AB 15. Know that it is not finalized, but as far as rules go, going forward, that may not be what gets passed, but it will be most likely similar to that. I've heard many different analogies and people saying, oh, they're not going to extend. It's going to expire at the end of this month and we're done. Look at our hospitals. Look at how many new cases we get every day. Yes, David Chu is at it again.
Patty, I have a question.
Yes.
I own a condo and I have tenants in there, tenant occupied condo, and their lease expires on October 31st. Should can I ask them to give them 60-day notice to move and they have to move, or can they claim COVID if their lease is expired?
It doesn't matter if their lease is expired. The only way you can enforce them is through AB 1482, which is Statewide Rent Control Act, that says that you can offer them a new agreement with like or similar terms.
But I want to sell it. I want to sell the condo. I'm desperate to sell that condo and get out.
Then list it for sale Then list it for sale right now. And as soon as you get an offer on it and you open escrow, serve them a 30-day notice to terminate tenancy because the buyer intends on occupying the premises. But you can't even serve the notice until escrow opens.
Okay, so then I can list it like 1 or 2 months before the lease expires. They're on a lease right now and it expires on October. So I could list it in September, try to get an offer, and then ask them to move out. Is that what you're saying?
List it right now and the buyer has to honor their lease term. That would be the easiest way, because even you can, let me tell you what tools we lost, okay? 30-day notice, gone. 30-day notice, we want our property back, gone. 60-day notice, we want our property back, gone. We don't have that anymore. Non-renewal of lease, gone. We don't have that anymore. We can
I thought when they're on a term contract, so you're saying it has to go automatically month to month. We cannot, even on a term, a lease that expires. You can't say your lease is up, you have to move. You can't do that anymore.
Bingo, you got it.
Oh, wow.
The only reason you can ask for possession is with cause, okay? You can give them a 60-day notice that the owner wants to move back in. You can give them a 60-day notice that a family member wants to move in.
My sister. Okay, I can let my sister move in, and then they would have to move. And okay. I do have a sister lives right. But does she have to just live there for a certain length of time, or can it be a couple of months?
Well, hold on. Aren't you selling? Once you sell, all of it goes away. Okay. Once it closes escrow, the problem goes down.
No, I have to get them out. They won't allow showings. Remember, you just said notice to entry no longer works. So don't I have to have them out of the property to sell it? How do you sell something when you have a tenant?
A lot of investors are purchasing right now tenant-occupied dwellings.
Yeah, they won't. This one they won't buy because the HOA is $732 a month. I've already tried that. This is an owner occupying. Yeah, this is a condo for an owner occupier. So what you're saying is I can't tell them my sister's going to move in, and then within 60 days we'll list it for sale. I can't do that.
No,
Wow. Okay.
it's unethical. So reasons you can terminate tenancy is with clause under AB 3088. An owner's moving back in, a family member's moving back in, major renovations.
Oh, I can do reservation. I have 3 bathrooms that need to be remodeled. Okay, I can do that. So can you email?
Pull permits.
Okay,
Pull permits before you even serve the notice. And you
Okay.
can't even serve the notice until their term expires.
Right, I get it. That's what I'm going to do. I have to do something to get them out. I will never sell this condo. I'll be stuck.
And let me say this, within the next 9 days, everything that I'm telling you could be in the trash.
Okay. Right.
Because
Okay.
we're expecting the law to change in the next 9 days.
Got it.
Okay, so what I'm telling you right now may not apply tomorrow.
Right.
Okay.
I got it. Thank you. But at least I didn't know.
In other words, don't play this out too good right now, because this could change at any moment, especially right now. We're kind of in a conundrum. Okay, let me read this really quick. In LA County, if an immediate family member moves in, how long do they have to be there? I heard 2 years, I've heard 5 years. It works with AB 1482. So it would be permanently removing it from the rental market. And what I've seen is 3 years. I've seen 5 years for the Ellis Act. It just depends on where you are and what moratorium regulates you currently. But escrow is the easiest way. If you have an open escrow, serve them a 30-day. Boom. You could do that anywhere for any reason except in LA County right now. In LA County, you have to have a police report. You have to have a murder, death, suicide.
Right.
You have to have those would be issues you could evict for in LA County. Other than that, right now our hands are tied in LA.
This property is not in LA County, but what happened to the protection for single family homes and condos? Is that so in the AB, the one it was
AB
voided from that law?
Those protections ended on October 5th.
Oh, that's why.
That's why we have owners that are now faced with notice to defaults and on their way to notice a trustee sale. We were protected until October.
Got it. Okay.
Should I sell my property to my tenant and rent from him? I'll have more rights. I like your thinking. People are asking me all kinds of stuff. Can I sell the property to my daughter? Well, I don't see a law that says you can't. For those of you considering offering cash for keys in order to get possession of your unit, I have a couple of pieces of advice for you. And I did use the word advice, okay? And this strictly comes from my business perspective. The tenant owes you $10,000 and now you want to try to go pay them to get them out. Don't offer them $500 because I have one question for you. Can you move for $500? No, you can't, but you're asking them to and then getting mad when they don't accept your offer. You want to make sure you're offering them enough money so they can go, bye-bye, get out. If you're not giving them enough where they can have first month's rent, security deposit, pay for a moving van, how do you expect them to leave? I'm just asking. This is a very business-oriented question. So I get that they owe you a crap ton of money. I get that you don't want to pay them to get out, but what's your other option? I'm listening. In other words, what I'm trying to tell you is if that's the route you're going, be prepared to pay them $2, $3, $5 grand. Who knows? My rule of thumb is 2 months of rent. Whatever my rent is I'm going to offer 2 months, and that's where I'm going to start. That's my starting point. not my ending point. That's what I start with. So I get a lot of calls from owners that say, I already tried to give them cash for keys. And I always ask, how much do you offer them? I offered them $700. Can you move for $700? I don't even think you could rent a U-Haul for $700. Okay, just saying. So if that's the route you want to take, and I know it's hard to swallow, especially when they owe you money, but you got to stop the bleeding at some point. Please think about it before you throw a number out, and then don't go, I'll give you 20 grand. And when they jump and say, okay, I'll be out on Tuesday, don't say, oh, no. I mean, I'm only going to give you 2,000. Don't do that either. Start at a number that makes sense to you. You can always go up from there. Okay. Use your negotiating skills. Anybody have any questions for me? And I anticipate that by next Wednesday, I should have a much better update for you on what's going on, what the changes are, how they're affecting us, what we foresee coming. AB 15 talks a lot about retaliatory, what we can and can't do, no rent increases, no late fees, no rent owed until January of next year. Yeah, that's what I just said. So again, they got to put some protections in there for landlords in order for that to fly. It won't fly without it. But my question becomes, what are they going to do? Slap no foreclosure moratorium on them for 6 months, and then we're right back in the predicament we're in right now. We can't evict, tenants don't owe rent, and I'm at notice of default. What do I do? Hand them over the title? I mean, it's not fair to us. Just so everybody's aware, go jump on AGLA's bandwagon, AAGLA. It's the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles. They have a lawsuit going against the city of LA and the county of LA for restricting us and tying our hands. Go jump on those lawsuits. If there's programs that we start seeing coming out and we're looking at AB 15, and this is just me talking, where they're going to extend the rent for another year, you may want to take that county rent relief or that city rent relief where you can't evict them for a year. You might not be able to anyway. So please consider all your options, but watch those fine print when you're taking money from one of these programs, because I guarantee you there is verbiage in there that you can't evict for 6 months or a year or whatever it is their terms are. Look for that, because that's a key factor. And we'll see what happens in the next 9 days. I'm trying to be very conservative in what I'm saying, but it's scary. It'll be interesting to see how it comes out. It'll be very interesting to see how it comes out. Somebody asked me, so I'll go ahead and share with you guys the no eviction moratorium in all of LA County. How are they enforcing that when you can go down to the courthouse and file a court case? We don't get how they're enforcing that. I'll tell you how they're enforcing that. The courts will allow you to file a court case in LA County right now in any court. You know why? They want the money. So you can file a case in any court in LA County right now for an eviction, okay? What they're doing is they're not issuing the writs of possession. If the tenant doesn't file an answer and you need the writ of possession in order to get it to the sheriff to do the lockout, they're not issuing that until the moratorium is lifted. Another way that they're enforcing it is if the tenant files an answer and wants to go to trial, they're setting trial dates now for after the moratorium. Okay, so current trial dates are being set now for end of March, and we're starting to see some go into April in LA County. So they're not issuing the writs of possession. They're not issuing court dates until after the moratorium is lifted. And one of the other things that we're seeing is if a writ is issued and it goes to the sheriff is posting that 5-day notice, but they're not scheduling a lockout date and time with you. So the sheriff will go post that notice. So watch your property if you're at a lockout phase, because if they go post the notice and that 5 days scares the tenant and they leave, hit the easy button, okay? But we want to watch the property to make sure that we don't have vagrants or somebody else, squatters, who knows, move into the unit, because then we're kind of back in a little bit of a conundrum. I saw another question come through. Let me go check it. Los Angeles County Development Authority is supposed to pay 10 months of rent for my tenant. It's been 3 weeks since approval. I did not see language about agreeing not to evict. You also don't have any money. It's been 3 weeks. I'd follow up with them, ask them what kind of restrictions they have on future evictions in the property, and are they paying 10 months of future rent or 10 months of past due rent? Because that becomes a big question in there as well. Might I remind you that the first 6 months of rent, it's past due rent? Okay, ask them if you can apply that to the 6 months, March, April, May, June, July, August. That is now no longer considered unpaid rent. It's considered consumer debt, and we can never evict for it. We can only sue in small claims court. So I would contact them. They're covering you from March through December. Yeehaw, hope you get your money. And I've got my fingers crossed with you. I would contact them and ask them what kind of restrictions they have on future evictions. If they're paying for rents that have already happened, I don't know what their ruling is, but I guarantee you somewhere in there, they have a rule about when you can evict. So ask them, ask to see the contract, look at it again. They may have it written in legal terms, so it's not easily identifiable. I don't know, but be careful with it is all I'm saying. Definitely something we want to be aware of as far as that goes. And they may make you sign something different once you get your check or in exchange for the check. So just be mindful of that too. They may get us along this far in the process and then dangle the check in front of us and say, okay, here's your check, but you got to sign this paper first. So keep an eye out for that as well. Not saying that they're doing anything wrong there, but they are, in my opinion, because they're not fully disclosing the terms of the agreement. And then I have questions like, do you have to pay that money back? Does the tenant have to pay that money back? What happens? Where does, I'm just saying, because what's that going to do to our economy in the long run, in the big picture, if every one of our owners did exactly that? How much is $1 really worth these days? Just saying, something to think about. Anybody have any questions, or I'm going to end this for today, just because I don't have all that juicy, detailed information for you guys. It's making me extremely frustrated. I hope you guys know that, because I want to help you with everything. Oh, thank you, Nick. I couldn't do this every week without you guys. And like I said, in the next week or so, I anticipate having lots of updates for you. So be ready. And at the end of this month, I am doing the Wednesday with Widget on understanding the terms of your written rental agreement. So I know we don't have the sign up ready for that, but that's in the works. And it's coming out, but definitely something you want to watch for, so you have a better understanding of what your rental agreement says. A lot of people don't understand the waiver clause. A lot of people don't understand the attorney's fees clause. A lot of people don't understand a lot of it. So I'm here to answer questions in detail about your written rental agreements and help you have a better understanding of what that means, so that we can manage our investment properties to the best of our ability. You're welcome. Thank you, you guys. I couldn't do this without you guys. And I know we don't have a big group right now. Do I have a date yet? A date for what, Jackie? The understanding the terms of your rental agreement. That's going to be on the last Wednesday of this month. I believe it's the 30th. And I don't have a calendar in front of me. I don't know what's the last Wednesday of January. You guys have to look at a calendar and tell me. I borrowed one of the attorney's offices that's in court today. January 27th. Okay, then that's the day we're doing it, girl. So I always try to do the last Wednesday of the month, more as a training course or a class, and trying to get those key factors that everybody seems to have quite a bit of questions about and understanding about. A lot of times you guys will call me and you'll be like, okay, I had a flood, this happened, I had a fire, this happened, whatever the issue is. And you guys tell me the house is uninhabitable, I got to kick my tenant out. Do I have to put them in a hotel or can I just terminate the contract? And I always say, well, what does your rental agreement say? And that's when I get the deer in the headlights. I don't know. So I want to help you guys understand better what those terms mean, how they affect you, and how they work with you instead of against you. So lots of key tips and tricks I want to point out there about rental agreements, additional disclosures, handwriting in terms, and talking about the legalities of your written rental agreement. Okay, so again, that's next week. Maybe we will have some better insight of what's happening with the COVID Tenant Protection Act and when the rent's going to be due by then. My guess is it'll happen on Friday at 5 minutes to 5 on the 29th of the month at the waking hour, when they slap it all together at the last minute because they're forced to do something. That's just my opinion. Okay. All right, you guys, if nobody has anything else, I will see you next week. Thank you. I will see you guys next week. And that's when we'll be talking about our lease terms and our written rental agreements. If anybody has a specific paragraph in their lease contract they don't completely understand, do me a favor, email it to me. I'd be happy to use that as an example for our training seminar. I'm going to go over in depth your waiver clause. I'm going to go over in depth your attorney's fees clause and what that means in simple English. Okay, so that we're not overextending ourselves or putting in terms that will hurt us in the long run rather than help us. Okay. Oh, you guys have a great week. Have a great weekend. If you need anything, you know how to hunt me down. All right. Bye, guys.